I'm listening to this book right now. It's called Transcendent Kingdom. It's about a girl who grew up with a mentally unwell mother who was extremely religious, immigrants from Africa. And I think she grew up in the South and just talking about so in her adult life, she stepped away from her religion and also lost much of her relationship with her mother, and she's talking about how her father left the family at a very when she was young, and so her mother grew up with her mother was mentally unwell but still fought to take care of her children. Her brother overdosed while she was in high school, I think, and he was a brilliant basketball star turned into an addict, and then he overdosed, and it's very sad and heartbreaking. She had just a really terrible, difficult life, in no small part thanks to how fanatic and religious her mother was, but also her mother's mentally unwell. And just like you get the feeling, just not really capable of being a good mom, really hampered by religion and sort of anti science rhetoric and just a lot of weird shit. And it's really interesting how the story keeps flipping back and forth between her life as an adult. She's a PhD working on her thesis in some science to help people with addiction. She's really motivated by her brother's overdose when she was a kid. And also, she's disillusioned with science and going through a lot of the stuff that I think you and I have been through, which is she only learned about sex and sexuality when she was very old. She's very bright, but also struggles a lot to catch up and learn the things that everyone else seems to have learned from a very young age because she was so incredibly sheltered and essentially just held back by her mother's fanatic religious devotion. And yet, there's an odd tension because even though she has obvious, deep, powerful resentment against religion and also her mother for being a terrible mom, at the same time, she has a lot of love and compassion for her mom because her mom was mentally unwell and did everything she could to take care of her kids. And so it's just like this really, I don't know, palpable tension. I read another book like this. It was called Educated. It's also a similar story about a girl who escaped from a cult. A lot of there was psychological, verbal, physical, and sexual abuse in her family, and very similar, very controlling, very strong religious beliefs, really anti-science, anti-education. And she also escaped and pursued education, went to school, eventually got a PhD, and wrote a book about her escape from her religious cult. And these books are really, I don't know, they're really triggering for me. And I feel like a lot of people can relate. It's just like a lot of the time you have complicated relationships with people who love you and who you love, and yet also they're not healthy relationships. And also there's a lot of complexity and drama and confounding variables. It's not clean cut, it's not nice. And then there's my relationship with my parents and my family. It's really just like there's a lot of bad memories. There's a lot of stuff similar to this. There's a lot of abuse that was never accounted for, has never been faced up to, and I don't think ever will be. There's a lot of trauma in the journey and also just struggle in the self discovery and also in the self development and also needing to be your own teacher and mentor because no one else is going to teach you because everyone else learned from each other when they were in grade school or whatever, and you're learning about it as an adult. I don't know. It's just really complicated, really interesting. I don't know. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm working my van. Haha. Actually, this reminds me of a book I read a very long time ago about a woman who escaped from North Korea, and she had a very similar sort of story where like an incredible amount of trauma and abuse, in the same way. Like think she had like loving family, but she was living in North Korea and they were starving. She tells all these stories about how like when she was a child, she would go out into the fields with her brother and try and find bugs to eat because there was no food. And just like a sort of traumatic story about like intense poverty and dying from hunger all around and just horrible. And then she escaped. She went to China at first, and she was actually sold into a brothel, and then she purchased essentially to be like a slave girlfriend by this lonely incel Chinese man. Sort of became his girlfriend, and becoming his girlfriend, he like looked at her and cared for her enough for her to sort of feet under herself, learn to read, learn to speak some Chinese, and eventually she was able to escape China, which if you are North Korean in China, the Chinese government will send you back to North Korea. And so she was living in hiding in this guy's apartment essentially as his like personal sort of like and yet like a very relationship where he also for her in ways that no one else could or would have at the time. And so even though it was a very abusive relationship where she couldn't leave, also it like the stepping stone she needed to a better life. And so she has like how she has these complicated feelings towards who both abused her and also gave her what she needed to achieve ultimate, and then she eventually like escaped to and learned English and became educated. And it's like a journey like transformation and incredible. I don't know. I resonate with stories a lot because yeah, I don't know. I find I have a lot of similar context as a lot of people that I have like that I even though they hurt me badly, and I don't know what to do about it. But yeah, sorry for long notes. Haha.